YouTube and Facebook? Are we streaming anything right now? We're streaming? We're streaming, Chris.
We're streaming.
Are we on Facebook and YouTube?
Don't stream too loud. I stream, we all stream. For ice cream? No?
For ice cream.
I think that's some ice cream. Real or fake ice cream?
Is he telling us to go 2, 1? Hey everybody, this is Ben and Dorch. Welcome back to TapRooT TV. I absolutely love reading our blog articles on our website, and I've got Chris Valley with me today.
Hi.
He has some of the most clever twists on certain topics, and I just think you're very creative in how you write your all your blog articles. So you need to go check them out on our website. But today we're going to talk about basically, we all hear about fake news or real news. I mean, it's like you cannot have a day where you don't hear about that. And there's reasons for that.
Right.
We see news articles all the time, and the different ways you, depending on who you hear the news article from, the way it's worded, the way the bias that is it has in the, like you were talking about in your article, the Deepwater Horizon,
Right.
The different ways that it was just even titled. It determines basically you can tell the bias towards what they're wanting you to find out.
Right.
So you mentioned this bias criteria of trust.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, let's start off, why should I have a criteria for trust?
Yes.
And this started off with is we all hear about fake news or real news, or I like to say real fake news. And people over time, they sit there and watch a news article. They pick their news stations, and it's all based on which news stations talk about what they care about, from the perspective that they care about, and which news stations don't attack your own frame of reference.
Right.
And if those are the news stations that you never discredit, you don't push back and say, have you validated your data?
Right.
And so we teach accident investigations. And it's hard to believe that we do not use that same criteria of what news to watch and believe to who we want to believe out in the field.
So when you're doing an investigation, that's something that can happen too. That bias criteria of trust, you have a checklist about it that basically you're like, do the headlines match my current concerns? Investigative questions expose those who I perceive as threats. Investigative questions do not attack what I perceive as correct. And published articles are rarely retracted because they are perceived to be based on truth and irrefutable. And it really depends on who you are in regards to what.
It does. It does. There's lots of fancy terms for bias, and from confirmation to hindsight, you name it. But at the end of the day, is we have our circle of trust.
Yes.
And
I'm in yours.
I hope so. That's why you should believe everything I'm telling you today without checking on anything. No fact check.
No fact checks.
There will be no 15 fact checks of everything that Chris said that was wrong, because I'm always right.
And you can comment below if you think that he's wrong on anything. So when we're starting an incident or performing a root cause analysis or equipment troubleshooting, do we do that?
Yeah. Well, see, one of the first things you do is you have to walk in and go, I'm not going to overly trust what I receive from people, whether it's written statements, computer printouts. I'm not going to overly trust it, but I'm not going to under-trust it either. I'm going to take it for what it is.
You've made a nice checklist, and Steve, if we can see that, just let me know when it's up. And we're good? Okay. This is a checklist that is in your blog article. Let's go over a few of these things.
Okay. So the first one we just covered, stop the urge to not trust or to overly trust. We have a tendency that, Bob was out there today. Don't believe anything he says. He has an agenda. What he's going to tell you ain't the truth anyway. Well, you know what? Even if their perception of what happened, they're just telling you their perception, even if they're not actually correct, not saying they're trying to not tell the truth,
right?
But they're bringing facts of perception to the table. So you're just collecting the evidence. You're not assessing any meaning to it right now. But what happens is people will and I'll skip to another step, they'll prematurely filter out the unimportant information. They'll,
that they think is unimportant.
Exactly. Why do I need to know the color of a forklift? Why do I need to know what time it was? Why do I need to know how long they've been here? Well, I don't know until I collect the evidence.
Right.
Because if you throw it away prematurely because you don't trust it or you don't think it's reliable or needed, you're not going to get it 6 months from now. You're not going to get it 2 months from now. Matter of fact, you'll probably lose it 2 weeks from now because nobody retained it.
Well, just right now, those two examples that you just said, I can easily see how they could, just the color of something versus the time of day of something, whether, depending on what the incident was, were they able to see? Were they able to, so all those little details are important.
Exactly. And one of my favorite ones, if you've ever been in any of my classes, because I teach TapRooT, this last course I taught.
I have not seen you teach
I know.
TapRooT.
Well, you need to, because
know.
I'm very trustworthy. But I just came back from Ocean Rig, and they have a lot of human factors programs. But one of the first things I teach is you got to go out and look. Yeah. There's a term called GOAL, G-O-A-L. You cannot start an investigation without knowing what happened. And what happens is if you trust the person you're talking to, you don't need in your mind to go out and talk to anybody because they know what's going on. I only need to see what they showed me, what they tell me. You got to go out and look. One of the last things, don't look for evidence just to support your current agenda.
Right.
If you walk in knowing why it happened in your mind, then that's all you're going to be looking for. If you walk in knowing how you want to correct a problem, then you're only going to support evidence that supports what you want to go do. So it all starts with, where does the trust come from? What is the focus? I purposely look at news articles and I read the comments because then I'll know who the audience was of those comments based on how they respond to that article. I also look at different types of evidence. I look at different news articles. I even look at articles from other countries. I'm trying to get every perspective and open-mindedness as possible so I can see when there's conflicts of information. Last of all, even with everything in front of me, if I've done a great job of not having confirmation bias, if I've done a great job validating my evidence, even when I look at what's in front of me, I may still need to bring in expert sources to help reduce the bias.
Yeah.
In TapRooT, I want the expert present. I want a neutral person present. The neutral person is going to pull all that evidence out in a non-biased way because they're going to ask questions. Well, when you operate this valve, what happens here? When he turns this wrench, how much stress does that put in? They're not trying to troubleshoot it. They're just trying to understand what fully happens.
Right.
So that helps guide that information and prevent bias from being driven by the facilitator.
That's a really great checklist. And you know what? It's kind of like, so thank you for presenting that. It's not like people try to have a biased opinion. There may be some people who do, but it's just one of those things. It's human nature to lean on what you know, right. Or sometimes people don't have enough time to do they're under time pressure. They're under all kinds of things. And so, coming up with, here's what I think happened, and versus going in and getting that, prematurely filtering out information like you were talking right. about. All those kind of things can come into play. Where we know on real and fake news, sometimes they really do try. But on our investigators, we know they really try very hard to do a excellent investigation. Just sometimes they may need to look at a checklist like this,
right.
and clear their mind, get themselves set so that they go out and do a completely unbiased investigation, and we have something that helps with that, don't we?
We do. So one of the best things to do is start with a very structured process that doesn't let you drive it. If you're using an investigation process that lets you drive it and it's going to go wherever you want it to go, then you're already going to have to definitely make sure you have a criteria of trust checklist, because if not, it ain't happening. But what we have is our TapRooT courses. The first thing we teach you is to go out and look and map out what happened first. We then have experts to ask questions that either you wouldn't have asked because you're not an expert in an area, or you wouldn't have asked because you don't think it's important. What people find, and I said, when you're doing a TapRooT, I promise you, I know you think there was an enforcement needs improvement issue. I know you think there was an ergonomic issue. I promise you, TapRooT will pull that out in a very structured, unbiased way if it's there. But what it will also do is keep you from prematurely filtering out other items that turn out to be very important as well.
Well, they could be precursor incidents that you find in the process.
Exactly. So it's designed to guide you, to keep you from prematurely filtering out unimportant information. The TapRooT process that we teach is designed to force you to go out and look and figure out what happened before we even let you ask about root causes. And it also has expert sources built into it, even the corrective action helper.
Yes.
It gives you things, and it even forces you to go look deeper, to go audit other areas to see if you have the same problem. So here's the deal. If you have a process that is purely driven by your criteria of trust only, or your bias criteria, your investigation is going to go into the direction you want it to go. So your investigation on the same problem will end up differently. Mine will end up differently, because we are not having to go out and force ourselves to validate, is this truth? So you can either have a true and real investigation with good evidence that's validated. You can have a fake one.
No.
You know, not real fake, just enough to say, I think I know what happened, and that's like an ACE, apparent cause evaluation.
Yeah.
It's a best guess. So it's fake only because you haven't validated it. Or you can have a real fake one, where it's not only in there what you wanted to be in there to prove what you wanted to prove, and nothing else matters, and as long as you don't question
it could solve a temporary problem, but it may not be actually the real problem.
Exactly.
So you need to do TapRooT. Because TapRooT is going to keep you away from those biases. I mean, you know, that deals with that, prematurely filtering out unimportant or unreliable evidence. You do go out and look. You collect your evidence. You do all of those things. And we would love to help you do that. That's what we do every day. We go out around the world and teach courses literally all around the world. You can
just
go
came back from Greece Saturday,
yes.
and I'm off to Amsterdam Monday.
Oh, my. And I'll just be right here. But we want to help you. So go to our website, to our courses page. Go to taproot.com/courses, and you can see where we're holding our public courses around the world. Those are great for global companies that have people scattered around and they can't just all come together and do a course on site, but we can also do those on-site courses, so definitely contact us about those. Any questions you have, contact us at info@taproot.com. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, and other than that, thank you, Chris.
Not a problem. Join our circle of trust of TapRooT users and friends, because they do use a criteria of trust checklist, because it's a process based on facts and evidence and truth.
Well, we'll put a link to your checklist in the comments, and we'll also put a link to his blog article if you want to read that. But anyway, thank you, Chris. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.